Welcome to Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality. I saw everyone talking about TurboQuant, Google's new tool in the timeline, and I instantly looked over it. I thought it was just something that was groundbreaking for the industry insiders. Then I started to see people actually talk about the tool and what it actually does. And what it does is nothing short of amazing. TurboQuant is a compression technique that makes AI memory use dramatically smaller and without using a lab or making your system worse. For years, the AI story has been told like a race toward more and more data, synthetic data, real world data, more chips, more power, more tokens, more money, bigger models, bigger infrastructure, bigger bills. TurboQuant arrives with a different idea. Instead of all this additional information, it's using whatever existing technology you have and optimizing it and making it less wasteful so you can run models more effectively and more optimized. At the technical level, TurboQuant is about the key value cache, the hidden working memory that helps large language models remember what they're doing as they generate responses. Google says its method can reduce that memory burden by around 6 times, and in some cases speed things up significantly, all without sacrificing output quality in their tests. That's the kind of promise that makes researchers raise eyebrows and also raises the eyebrows of consumers getting pummeled by memory prices. On the micro level, TurboQuant is a software efficiency breakthrough. It may help AI systems answer queries faster, use less memory, and run more cheaply. That matters for search, for assistance, for enterprise tools, for every product team trying to push AI into the body of an existing app without setting the budget on complete fire. But then on the macro level, it raises a more unsettling question. If AI can become more efficient, what happens to the entire economics built around AI and around its scarcity? I mentioned it earlier, but a lot of the recent AI boom has depended on the assumption that the bottleneck is hardware. That assumption has been very, very profitable for, companies like Micron, Nvidia. It justifies giant capital spending by these AI labs and AI adjacent companies. Endless chip demand and the idea that compute itself is the rarest commodity in tech. How many times we've heard people say, compute, we need more compute, we need more compute. You're hearing that from Anthropic right now, and that's why Google's building new data centers. But if software keeps learning how to squeeze more out of each chip, then the market starts to look less like an arms race and more like a moving target. And I don't think that chip demand will collapse. Usually means something stranger. Efficiency often creates appetite. When it gets cheaper to use a technology, people use more of it. And that's the hidden rule of the digital economy. Savings do not always reduce spending. Sometimes they open a wide door for it and it gets unleashed. So TurboQuant may not be the thing that makes AI smaller in the cultural sense. It may do the opposite. It could make AI more ubiquitous, more embedded, and even harder to notice. Less spectacle, more plumbing, as I would say. TurboQuant is one of those advances where it's not going to be a lot of fanfare, a lot of public fare as far as like being on CNBC, or being on, the major public outlets, like a model release or something like that. But it's the type of advance that doesn't look like a breakthrough, but instead it quietly changes the price of everything downstream, and the people who know. And I was thinking about something really interesting when it comes to this whole dynamic with TurboQuant, and it's the question of whether the future of AI belongs only to companies that can afford massive infrastructure, or whether the next phase belongs to companies clever enough to make that infrastructure matter less. Google's TurboQuant isn't just a technical flex. It's got a weird, almost comedic echo and parallel of the HBO show Silicon Valley's most infamous plotline. TurboQuant squeezes AI memory usage down by up to 6 times without tanking performance. That's the kind of Pied Piper style compression that made the show's fans cheer while real engineers cringe. That was one of the major storylines with their company Pied Piper, is getting to a certain level of compression. Now, Google's researchers didn't name it TurboQuant to troll, but they absolutely could have. I talked about how the main portion of TurboQuant is the key value cache, the part of the LLMs that remembers context during inference. Instead of storing full precision values, it aggressively quantizes them, reportedly maintaining near identical output quality. Google claims 6 times memory reduction and measurable speedups on their TPUs. The benchmarks look really good, and the real question is whether it generalizes beyond Google's hardware. From what I've seen online from people using TurboQuant, it really is a game changer as far as people being able to get more out of their hardware when it comes to running AI models and getting them to run faster. Also with TurboQuant, it adds an interesting facet to local deployment as well. With this kind of compression, you're not just going to run smaller models on laptops anymore. You're going to run production grade models locally, especially once it gets into the second and third generation of TurboQuant. Think Llama 405B or Mixtral 820-20B, or on a 4090 GPU with a 24 gig VRAM. Or even better yet, everybody loves Mac Studios, but a Mac Studio with 128 gigabit unified memory. The gap between the cloud and edge computing will shrink dramatically. It's funny, in the HBO Silicon Valley show, their compression algorithm was obviously fiction, but the magical algorithm in the show made the VCs drool. And here in reality with TurboQuant, Morgan Stanley analysts are already writing notes about how this boosts hyperscaler efficiency while quietly shifting capex from memory modules to more compute. Memory stocks dip predictably with the arrival of TurboQuant's news, because when software gets better at using hardware vendors typically sweat. This has been Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality.